Hello, hello, Jima. Thank you very much for
How you
joining.
doing? Yeah, how you doing, Matt?
I am very good. Just trying to problem again at the moment with the Facebook feed for some reason. So trying to get moving, but I'm very good otherwise. Testing if it works here. Yes, it looks good. So fantastic. We are live and kicking. So Jima, you had a great presentation today.
Yeah, wait well.
Excellent. For those that haven't seen it yet, could you give like a brief sort of 2-3 minute overview of what you talk about and so on, so they know what to expect if they tune into it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Basically, I was talking about the concept of using topic clusters rather than just trying to rank for one or two keywords. You use topic clusters to rank for not just rank but to own the topic. So I talked about creating, doing a content gap analysis to identify gaps in your existing content, um, conducting a content audit, and then using all of all that information to build your topic cluster. Just any kind of topic cluster, a topic cluster that is holistic, that takes the buyer or the user rather from the top of the funnel and even past the point of purchase.
Excellent. That sounds good. So, Jima, I was interested. I did a live talk as well with Nick Jordan earlier today, and he had this tool called Cluster AI. Have you ever used any of these keyword clustering tools yourself?
No, except when I use it on except when I use that kind of, let's say it's kind of that kind of feature on SEM Rush to gather that data around the keyword. Those cluster area tools are good. Like I said in the presentation, they can help you get that starting data, like I like to call it, around the keyword. But if you're trying to build a holistic cluster, then you need to go beyond keywords, beyond related keywords, and then think of the user's journey. What questions are they asking at each point of the sales funnel? What will you need to guide them with even after they have made a purchase? What is the motivation for them looking at that keyword? So this kind of question, you can't get that answer with a cluster AI tool, because cluster AI tools are basically just AI tools that look for related keywords and all of such data. But when it's coming to thinking like a human being, they can't recreate that same experience. And that's not something that you can automate.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, any secret tricks? So you obviously revealed a lot in your presentation. Any sort of small secret tips or tricks or anything that you didn't share in the presentation that you feel like sharing?
I think the biggest takeaway, and everybody seemed to get that because people were buzzing me on Twitter and LinkedIn, say that the biggest takeaway for them was that when building the topic cluster, you have to start from the bottom and then make your way to the top. Because if you start from the top, then you kind of have one piece of content that is competing against everything else you're going to create in the rest of the cluster. So that's like the main thing I want people to remember. Building your cluster, start from the bottom, make your way to the top. That way there's no conflict in terms of the kind of keywords that you want to rank for each piece of content.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So we've had a few questions sort of around content and keyword research and so on. So one of them here says, does it make sense to just look at your competitors that are doing the best and look at how they structure their site, or should you always do full keyword research from scratch?
Yeah, both. Shouldn't just competitor research is great, but I see a lot of people who just start there and end there. Like it becomes obvious that what you're trying to do is you just want to copy your competitor. So how do you stand out if you're doing the exact same thing as them? But when you do the full keyword research, you're going to see keywords that even your competitor missed, because the way that people search for topics is changing regularly. What are the new search patterns? Most likely your competitor did not cover that because they did their keyword research when they were building their website. But if you are building yours at a later date, you have the advantage of capturing those keywords that they used, and then even new keywords or questions that people are asking around that topic. So for sure, start from scratch with your keyword research. And if you start from scratch with your keyword research, most certainly you are going to include competitor research.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, one guy asking here, he's saying, does it make sense to primarily go for buyer keywords, or should you always do a mixed approach? Because he said he have had some problems since the December update, potentially because you focus too much on buyer keywords. So what's the best practice around that?
Yeah, with buyer keywords, like I said, is the best place to start from, but it's such a limited amount of data because there are not a lot of people who are looking at buyer keywords, which also makes it the best place to start. So if you create those pieces of content, you must have it in mind that the next step is consideration content and awareness content. You can't just have buyer pieces of content that are looking to sell, like landing pages and maybe service pages, without having those consideration content about reviews, about buying pages or buying guides, and then those how-to pieces of content, because in a way they are just as important. While the buy keywords help you get those sales, those consideration and awareness content bring in traffic. So it's always a good approach to think of it long term, that if I'm creating buyer contents, then I'm also going to create awareness and consideration contents. That way, even when there's a new Google update, you're still in good terms because you have all of the right pieces of content on your websites.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So here's a different question. So this is from a, I guess, local SEO perspective. So there's a woman asking if, so she basically have a store that sells something to do with sewing, and she's asking if she should only have information relevant to her actual business and so on, or if it actually makes sense for a local business to have like a blog with lots of more informational content, if that would actually help getting more local searchers.
As a rule of thumb, every website should have a blog. How do you intend to build internal links? How do you intend to, what are you going to link back to if you're creating blog content or guest post content if you don't have informational pieces of content or just blog content in general? So even a small business, no matter what you're selling, if I'm trying to buy from your website and I'm not sure on what I need, I'm still going to turn to your blog to guide me. It doesn't matter what you're selling, and it doesn't matter how big or small your business is, you still need a blog. And for local businesses, then that means that you're doing local SEO research. That means they're looking at local competitors. Local competitors doesn't necessarily have to be people who are in the same town as you. You can find someone who has kind of like owned that keyword, a local business that is doing really well in terms of traffic, and then start to see the kind of keywords that they are using and reverse engineer it for your own websites. That means you're using similar keywords, but adding your own location to those keywords if you're a local business. So at the same time, you also your keyword research is two-faced. You're looking at the keyword and you're looking at the location. So you're also building topic clusters for locations as well as the main topics that you're trying to rank for. This was something that we used to do back when I worked in-house. There was this rehab center. They are the biggest rehab center in the UK, and they wanted to rank for rehab keywords around drug and alcohol rehab. So we would create a ton of location pages for locations around London, since London was the biggest, the biggest area in the UK. every single borough. We have keywords for every single state. Every place in the UK had a location page. So that's something you need to do if you have a local business. You have a list of all the locations in your state or in your town. You create location pages for them, plus the keyword. You also have your topic clusters for each keyword you're trying to rank for. But you have a section at the end of the page that describes how to get to location X. That way, your page is ranking for the keyword, but it's also ranking for the location as well. And you're probably going to easily be the best resource for that location and keyword if you have topic clusters for locations as well as topic clusters for your keywords.
Yeah. Sorry, Chima. Sorry, it sounds a bit like there's a fan or something blowing into your microphone.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, let me see. Let me see. One moment.
No worries. I think that sounds better. That sounds better.
Yeah. Okay.
So next question, and that I've been asked a lot, but basically, what's the best way to find good content writers, or where's the best place to find good content writers?
Number one, not Fiverr, not any of those content mills websites. I think the best place to find good writers is on social media. Social media is always the best place to find good writers. The best way I find writers when I need to outsource is LinkedIn. The way people write on LinkedIn gives you an idea of how they're going to write when they're creating content. If somebody has a very good grasp of writing that introductory line that makes me to stop and read what they're saying, then it's also going to translate when they're writing blog content. If they have a good way of articulating what they're saying in a way that is so easy and so clear to understand the message, then it's also going to translate when they are writing blog content. You can easily just go to somebody's profile on LinkedIn and see all of the information. You can see their samples. So it's very, very easy to find writers using resources like LinkedIn. I also use all of the other resources, honestly, they haven't worked for me. LinkedIn has been the best place for me to find writers.
So do you generally search for general writers, or do you mostly search for writers that are specific to a particular topic?
Always niche writers. Since I'm an SEO content writer, I'm also only working with people who are SEO content writers. I've found that people who have a niche tend to be superior in that niche when compared with a generalist. So always I'm looking for someone who's an SEO content writer, and I'm always searching within my network. There's a 90% chance that whatever type of skill I'm looking for, someone in my network already has that skill.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. And what do you feel is the best way to test writers, or like when you find a writer that you think is good, like how do you go around testing them or assessing their skill set and so on?
Honestly, from the first conversation, you can start to have an idea of if they are listening to what you're saying. I was looking for a designer, a UI UX designer, and I wanted someone to do something for me for 2 pages on my website. And then this person I was speaking to started talking about revamping my whole website. And I was like, whoa, calm down. I only need 2 pages, not the entire website. And then he once again went off gear and started talking about how I needed to revamp my entire website. Clearly, this is not someone that listens to instruction. So from that first conversation, you have an idea of if they understand your needs. You ask them for samples. You can easily tell how good a writer is by looking at their writing samples. You read 2 or 3 pieces of content that they've worked on, and then you start to see a pattern. Okay, this is how they write the introduction. This is how they write the headline. This is how they write subheadings. This is how they tie in the brand message with what they're trying to say. So you can have a very, very good idea just by looking at their writing pieces. And then finally, I give them 1 piece of content to work on. And if that goes well, then we move on from there. But never, ever unpaid. in fact, just by looking at their samples, I can always tell if somebody is going to be a good fit for me.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And with the writers, like one of the things that I've typically seen is the fact that, you know, writers are writing on a topic very good for a period of time, but after a certain amount of time, they tend to run out of steam, or I'm not sure if they just, you know, get fed up with writing so much.
Yeah,
what's the challenge?
yeah. That I think this is very, very clear. It only ever happens with cheap writers. Cheap writers are overworked. Cheap writers are overbooked. Cheap writers do not have the capacity to sustain that level of creativity month to month. They suffer burnout easily, and that shows in their work after a while. So initially it starts off well, they're giving you great work, and after 2 months or so, you start to see the quality dropping. It's like they reserve their best for new clients. And then, once you've kind of passed the honeymoon stage with them, then you start to see that the quality is dropping. But if you hire a writer, a top quality writer that makes enough money writing content, that means they're not overworked, they're not overbooked. That means that they can afford to say, okay, I'm going to write one piece of content for 3-4 days. That means they are putting in the time to do the research. They are really, really, really taking the time to read your guide, your style guide. They are assimilating all the information, and they are turning it into great content. They also have room to let the content marinate at least for a day, coming back to it, editing it properly before sending it to the client. The quality is usually worlds apart, and it's just because they have more time to write the content than somebody who is charging $100 for a piece of content.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, and I think that's, yeah, it's definitely a typical thing that we've seen quite a bit of. So that makes sense. That makes sense. Generally, for updating content, or you know, when you have an existing site or you're working with a client that have existing content, right? What are the sort of quick wins, or what are sort of the easy wins that you feel there is in terms of getting some quick impact for the clients?
Yeah, like always, that has to be content updates. So I'm looking at which pieces of content or which keywords do they have on page 2. Page 2 means that maybe usually that the content is not long enough, or it's not well written, or it's not properly optimized. I start from there. I rewrite the content if needs to be, optimize the haircut of it, upload it, ask the client to do the few backlinks, and that content is going up to page 1. So those are the quick wins I'm looking for. Usually has to do with content updates. And then I'm looking at will I say keywords with low search volume, low competition. That means that, okay, I'm looking at everybody who is writing, and I'm asking myself, can I beat these guys out? Can I create content that can actually beat these guys out? If the answer is yes, I'm suggesting that to the client, and we're working on it, and the results usually easily within 3 weeks, we can start to see results on that. Then I leave all those big competitive keywords for later down the line when we have to start creating a content hub. But for quick wins, content updates, keywords with low search volume.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. And then I have a lady, Christina, here, who's asking. She's saying she have a website with 200 posts. Quite a few of them have 0 traffic and 0 impressions in Google Search Console. So she's asking, should she aim to update them, or should she just remove them from the page? Because multiple people have recommended her to prune the page, or basically remove some of the pages that don't have traffic. So, yeah.
Rather than removing those pages that don't have traffic, why doesn't she combine them? Like, this is an opportunity to create mega guides. In fact, even build clusters with what she has. What can I combine? Can I combine 3 articles into one, reduce it so that it makes sense into a 3-4K article? This is like an opportunity to have longer pieces of content rather than having 1K pieces or 200, 500 word pieces. So I would advise her to maybe work with an SEO to see what content pieces can we combine, what doesn't fit in, those have to go, and then watch what happens. If she's having more long form pieces that are properly optimized, that align in terms of the kind of keywords she's trying to rank for, and those that are completely relevant, she prunes them, then she's going to see better results.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think, I mean, what we have also seen sometimes, obviously, if you read an article and it's just crap, then again, if there's no link going to it, it could also make sense just to remove it, right? But at least for us, like we like buying sites, and what I like to do if there's pages that are getting no traffic, I like to see, because sometimes it's people who've just written blog content, they haven't actually keyword optimized and the like. So sometimes even if you can, you know, tweak the H1 and maybe a couple of the H2s and something to be a little bit more accurate, you know, within a couple of weeks you might see some traffic. So we often do like sort of a quick fix, like quick 5-10 minutes thing to see if we can get some traffic or get some impressions to the page. And then, you know, if we after a couple of weeks or a month or whatever see that it didn't change anything, then we often consider removing it. But combining is definitely also a great option.
I would also advise that if you are trying to prune them, you can look at the keyword. What's the keyword that this page is supposed to rank for? Does that keyword have any search volume? Does this keyword serve any purpose in the buyer's journey? If not, X.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the next one is in terms of content length. So like, do you recommend doing many larger articles or like skyscraper type content where you have maybe 10,000 words or the likes, or do you generally stick to smaller posts of 1, 2, 3, 4K words and so on?
Oh, never. Okay, I don't even understand why anybody would be creating a 10,000 word blog post. Like, that's insane. That's insane. I would advise for top of the funnel pieces, 5K. There are some even have up to 6,000 words. It depends on how big is this keyword you're trying to rank for. If it's a big keyword that you're going to build a cluster for, it makes sense to have content at the top of the funnel be very long, 5K, 6K, lots of infographics, lots of graphics in there, so that the user doesn't just feel like they're just looking at words, but there's a mix of media in there. And then the further down you come to into the cluster, maybe keywords that have 1,000, 2,000 search volume, then you can start to create 3,000, 3,500 words. Usually, as a rule of thumb, I use what is already ranking. What's the average word count for what is already ranking? Then I go longer than that by at least 500 words, because I'm trying to beat them out on length and quality.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so from an existing site, like if you start, let's say you get a new client and so on, and you start analyzing their site, where do you generally start analyzing a site for potential wins?
If I'm jumping on a call with a potential client I'm going to work with, usually I want to suggest something that makes them enthusiastic to work with me on the first call. So the first thing I'm looking at is their keyword ranking. I'm looking at, okay, do they have a lot of pages on page 1? Are they ranking for their branded keywords? Are they ranking for keywords that have high purchase intent? This is where I'm starting from when I'm looking at that data. So it's usually SEMrush, keyword ranking, open wide there, and then I'm analyzing it. If they have very few pages on page 1 and they have a lot of content, problem, you have a lot of content, you should have more pages. At least the first page of SEMrush should be filled with page 1 pieces that you are ranking for, at the very least, if you have an old website. If not, then that's a problem. It means that probably there's a mismatch with your search intent. Maybe the content has not been properly optimized, and this is why you need me to come in and then fix all of this for you.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, Chima, we unfortunately, it looks like we have a problem with the stream today, so we're not actually getting any questions through. We can actually see a lot of the live viewers. So Facebook is playing up a little bit again, unfortunately. But thank you very, very much for all of your good feedback and your good questions. So
for sure.
Any last word to the audience before we finish up?
Yeah, I just want to say that initially topic clusters sounds very overwhelming to people because it's not something that you take lightly. It's an investment. It's something that you have to plan properly if you want to get it right. So be patient with your website. Be patient with your writers. Be patient with yourself. Results will happen if you build the strategy right. The results will always happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chima. And to the audience, we will be back again with a Q&A tomorrow at the same time. So thank you very much. Feel free to keep posting questions in the group, on the page, on the email, and everywhere you can find us. So we gather as many as we possibly can. So thank you very much.